أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم المنافقون والمنافقات بعضهم من بعض يأمرون بالمنكر وينهون عن المعروف ويقبضون أيديهم نسوا الله فنسيهم إن المنافقين هم الفاسقون وعد الله المنافقين والمنافقات والكفار نار جهنم خالدين فيها هي حسبهم ولعنهم الله ولهم عذاب مقيم كالذين من قبلكم كانوا أشد منكم قوة وأكثر أموالا وأولادا فاستمتعوا بخلاقهم فاستمتعتم بخلاقكم كما استمتع الذين من قبلكم بخلاقهم وخضتم كالذي خاضوا أولئك حبطت أعمالهم في الدنيا والآخرة وأولئك هم الخاسرون صدق الله العظيم. Verse 67 of Surah At-Tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs the Sahaba anhum and the Muslim community to come and generations of Muslims to come, that when you are dealing with various groups, how vigilant you should be, how aware you should be of who is who displays which qualities, and based on that, how do you interact with them. So for example, al-munafiqun munafiqat, the reality is this: the Quran Karim tells us that the hypocrite, men or women, whichever it is, they are all one of one another, meaning they work for one another, their interests are how do they benefit each other. Whereas, in comparison to this, al-mu'minun wal-mu'minat ba'duhum awliya ba'd. Mu'minun, believing men, believing women, they act together for one another's, not one another's interests, personal interests, but for the interests of Islam. The munafiq, the hypocrite, what's in their mind, for who do they work? Themselves. I'la kalimatillah is not in the front of their mind. That's not what they're interested in. They're not trying to bring khair and goodness towards Islam and Muslimin to see how can Islam flourish. That's not what the munafiq wants. The munafiq, in fact, wants the complete opposite of that. So one is this level of nifaq imani that they had to, the munafiqs amongst the Sahaba in Medina, because the political power was with the Muslimun. So the nifaq they had to show was a complete nifaq of iman as well, that to act as if they're believers. That's one level, the highest level. A lower level can be that where Muslims do not have political power, but there will be those groups who want to show externally that, oh yes, we are here to support you. They may say things like that, but they could care less about Islam and Muslimin. So even with such groups, now they may not need political power from you as such, but support doesn't hurt anyone. In this world, no one has a problem with the little bit of support that you give them. Their agenda is also fulfilled, and after that they dump you. So the Quran Kareem is asking the Muslim community that be aware of these things, be vigilant. Don't be so naive. Once it happens, second time it happens, third time it happens. At some point you should get it across that which doors can you knock on, which doors are not there for you to knock on. So the munafiqun, they are ba'dhum min ba'd. They work for one another, they are in support of one another, they don't care about you. You need to understand that. يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمُنْكَرِ. These are the qualities. The believer calls towards goodness. The munafiq calls towards munkar, the opposite. They call towards evil, things which should not be. يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمُنْكَرِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمَعْرُوفِ. In fact, they prevent goodness. Your duty in your work, you're working towards amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. Their direction is the opposite. So when two opposites are there, then they're going to collide. So that Quran itself is going to tell you that there will be collision. You have to be ready for that. Luqman al-Hakim, in Surah Luqman, when he advises his son, Ya bunay aqim as-salah wa'mur bil ma'ruf wanha 'anil munkar, he gives him some advice. He says, aqim as-salah, establish salah, without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without establishment of salah, whatever work that you do, whatever service that you have, all of that is zero. It means nothing. If you have no connection with Allah ta'ala, then you're like anyone else, any other thing. What makes something lillah versus what is not lillah? Everyone is working. Every group, every ideology, everyone is pushing agenda, and perhaps they are pushing more than even Ahlul Haqq. But what differentiates between you and them? Lillahiyat. For it to be for the sake of Allah. Dhikrullah. Trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we also remove that from the equation, then your endeavors and their endeavors, what's the difference? If it's just a matter of we need someone with this skin in a certain office, that there's no fight, there's no benefit in that. Someone with a different name, someone with a different race, that itself is not going to change anything. There are many Muslims which have many offices, which have much political power. But how much Islam is there? Did that stop what's happening in the world today? It's nothing. Why? Because there's no lillahiyat, same thing. So the Muslim community, locally and at large, are falling to the same problem again and again and again. By merely saying someone with a different name is going to be there, that's not going to bring any change. With a different race, it's not going to bring any change. As long as there's no tarbiyah, there's no lillahiyat, there's no sunnah, there's no ittiba'u Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it may even be worse in some cases. So that change that needs to come is within first. Aqim as-salah, Luqman tells his child. After the first lesson was tawheed, staying away from shirk, tasheeh al-aqidah. First start with the aqidah. Then aqim as-salah, your ibadah comes. Once these things are there, your foundation is there, there's a platform that you can stand upon. Now wa'mur bil ma'ruf. Now call towards good. Wanha 'anil munkar. This is the reason what you're there for. Any endeavor, any service you give should be based on amr bil ma'ruf nahy anil munkar. Now the point I wanted to make is this, that immediately after that, what does he say? وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. Have patience upon what's going to afflict you. Why? You can't have amr bil ma'ruf nahy anil munkar and everyone's going to hug you. Because there are other endeavors, there are other ideologies, there are people who are working to the opposite of what you're saying. You're going to call towards haqq, they're calling towards what we know as batil. How can haqq and batil come together? So وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ. You need to have patience for that. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to persevere? Will you have istiqamat in the face of that? يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمُنْكَرِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَقْبِضُونَ أَيْدِيَهُمْ. Qabada means to hold back. They hold back their hands. Two tafseers mufassirun give. One is what you have in the translation here. يَقْبِضُونَ أَيْدِيَهُمْ, that they don't give in Allah's path. All talk. If you believe in something, give for it as well. Right? You say, I love you, honey, I love you, my children. But come time to spend in the family, you don't want to spend anything. So that's all talk. يَقْبِضُونَ أَيْدِيَهُمْ. When it's time to spend, where you need to give, they don't give. When the need is there, we have X amount of budget that needs to be fulfilled. I'm not talking about extras and extravagant things. I'm talking about within needs, within what's considered to be practical, pragmatic, within that scope, then you have to give. But the munafiq, يَقْبِضُونَ. Why? They have no trust in Allah, they have no belief in what's to come. They're only seeing what's in front of them. Hayat al-dunya, that's it. Akhirah means nothing for them. So يَقْبِضُونَ أَيْدِيَهُمْ, that's one tafsir. The other is, when it's time to use your hands by force, then that should also be there. When it's time to speak, you speak. When it's time to give gifts, you give gifts. When it's time that you need to physically also stand up, then you should also be able to do that. Then no, we're pacifists. That does not work. Islam is a complete way of life. Completeness requires that you give da'wah with the tongue where that needs to be, and you need to be physically strong where that's also needed. وَيَقْبِضُونَ أَيْدِيَهُمْ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَنَسِيَهُمْ. They have forgotten Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does it mean, forgotten Allah? That when you do not do something, so the Quran is using this expression as if they've forgotten. If you forget something, there's no way you're going to do it. That's what forgetfulness means. The other is that out of laziness you don't do something, so it's still in the back of your mind. Or maybe at this time you are busy, so it's still in the back of your mind, you'll get it done. Forgetfulness means that it's not on your mind. So you'll never do that. So nasullaha, they forgot about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَنَسِيَهُمْ, Allah will forget them, and there's no forgetfulness for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What that means is, Allah will also leave them, يوم القيامة. That just as today they have no concern for what Allah has to say, what the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, then يوم القيامة also, we will also forget about you. So that forgetfulness, what does that mean? That we forget you? That we also will have nothing stored for you. No rahmah for you over there as well. No thawab for you over there as well. No jannah for you over there. Whereas we'll give to those who did not forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are dhakir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nasullaha fanasiha. Inna al-munafiqina humul fasiqun. Indeed, the hypocrites, they are the ones who are ungodly, fisq. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that these hypocrites and the kuffar in general will have نَارَ جَهَنَّمْ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. That this is what will happen in the akhirah. They will have the fire of Jahannam dwelling therein forever. هِيَ حَسْبُهُمْ, that is sufficient for them. Meaning in this world, someone may be taking a test on that. Someone may be exposed, someone may not be exposed. Someone's their unjust ways, their dhulm may be taken into account for, maybe not. It's possible. In this world, things have, apparently it may go unchecked. But as I said, it's apparently it goes unchecked. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's written. The records are written. Hiya hasbuhum, the akhirah and what awaits for them in the akhirah, that is sufficient for them. وَلَعْنَهُمُ اللَّهِ. La'na of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means to be away from His rahmah. لَعْنَهُمُ اللَّهِ, Allah curses them. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ. That adhab will be such that it will, muqim is someone something is always there, qaim is there. An enduring torment. It won't stop, continuous. Although we read the following ayat as well, we'll do that inshallah tomorrow. Sadaqallahu al-azim. We make dua that Allah Ta'ala gives us the understanding of the Quran Kareem.